All right. Hey, everybody. This is Rosh, and you're watching FM9 Basics. This is a YouTube tutorial series that I'm putting together to help new and experienced users program all their Fractal products, including the FM9, the FM3, and the Axe 3. So if you've been watching this YouTube channel, you've been seeing that I've been doing a series called Gig Ready Presets, and this is just going to be another Gig Ready preset that you can use. And again, if you're just getting to this YouTube channel for the first time, once again, my name is Rosh, and I build and program guitar rigs for a lot of different clients out here in LA as well as online. Some of my clients include Steve Vai, Leppard, Melissa Etheridge, Perfect Circle, Bush, Papa Roach, and more. And I wanted to give back to the Fractal community and show some tips and tricks on how to program all the Fractal products. So feel free to subscribe to this YouTube channel, or you can view some of the other videos that I've made to help you get the best tone and the most functionality out of all your Fractal products. So if you have been buying these presets, if you have been hiring me for one-on-one sessions to help program all your modelers out there, whether it's the Helix, the Quad Cortex, the Kemper, or in this case, any of the Fractal products, I just want to extend a sincere thank you so much for getting in contact with me. If you do want to do a one-to-one session where I can help you program your unit, feel free to reach out directly to me, and then we can set up a session for you. So once again, these are going to be gig ready presets, and my philosophy for these gig ready presets these are for the new users who just bought an FM9. They just took it out of the box, and maybe they're overwhelmed with a lot of the options that are in there. Maybe they just play in a cover band. Maybe you just want to kind of get up and running so that you can put this preset into your unit and you can take it to a gig tonight. I wanted to give a lot of functionality and just get everything really dialed in so that you can just put it in your unit, and it's really easy to edit, really easy to use the foot switches and everything like that. Now, once again, I never want a financial constraint to be, a barrier of entry when using any Fractal products. So this YouTube tutorial is going to be going over this particular preset, and you can just copy all the settings that I've put in here. But if you want a shortcut, you can go to the Gumroad link in the description and just buy this preset. You'd be supporting the channel. I think the price is pretty fair. And again, this is something that you can just do if you just want to take a shortcut instead of dialing in this preset from scratch. But by all means, feel free to either buy the preset or just follow along as I walk through the preset. Now, this particular preset and all the gig ready presets are always going to be dialed in with a very specific guitar. It's going to be a preset that can hopefully work for as many people as possible. And again, because there's so many music styles out there, there's so many needs that is going to be completely unique. Everybody plays differently. Everybody plays different styles of music. I just wanted to have a ton of different presets that are going to be, effective for any user. So for example, some of my other presets, they might be for Strat players who only want to use, one single amp and just a bunch of different pedals. In this case, this is going to be the first of probably many presets that's going to involve channel switching. Now, what I've done is I'm going to be using this amp block, and then I'm going to be using, 2 channels in this amp block. So this would be like if you just bought a 2-channel amp, an amp that has a clean channel and a dirty channel, and you're going to be switching between the both of them. And again, I will walk through everything on how I set that up, as well as all the foot switches that are in the particular preset and everything like that. So without further ado, let's just dive right into the preset. So the first thing is going to be this input block, and let's talk about a little bit about this routing right here. All I'm using is these input block, using this send and return just to give a little bit more room, just in case you want to add some other effects in here that you like. I'm put a lot of room in here just in case you want to add different effects, move some of these effects around. That's why there's a lot of extra space here. So in the input block, we have a little bit of a gate just to make sure that, when you're on the dirty channel, there's not going to be too much noise. Just a little bit. That's just for my guitar, but I'm holding the strings now. Just a little bit of gating, not too much. And again, if you need it to be even quieter than that, you can just bring this threshold a little bit higher. Especially if you're playing live, especially if you just need it to be dead quiet. Again, I don't like to gate too much because I do like the sustain of guitar, and I don't like that to affect the sustain. But you can always adjust this input gate right here. And then the next block is going to be the volume block. Now, there's a lot of different philosophies on how the placement of the volume block. So that's why there's a lot of different options here. So the first thing is this volume block is going to be tied to pedal 2. So if you're going to be using an expression pedal to control the volume pedal, just make sure you are putting an expression pedal that's calibrated into PDL2 on the FM9. And then you can see right here, I'm going to move this expression pedal, and you can see that it's controlling the volume block. Now, there's a lot of different placements of where the volume block should go. And there's a lot of different people have a lot of, want different functionality out of this. And so, for example, if you do put the volume pedal first in the chain before your drives and before the amp, as you roll the volume back, it will affect the gain of the amp. So this is very similar to if you roll off the volume knob of an amp. So here is the basic dirty sound. Now, if I roll this volume pedal to about halfway, you're going to notice that the gain cuts out. And again, I haven't manipulated any of the volume knobs on my guitar. I'm using the bridge pickup of a Les Paul. And so even if you roll off even more, it would be the same as almost if you rolled off your volume knob. So here's me rolling off my volume knob. And again, some users want that kind of behavior. They're used to using a volume pedal right in front of an amp, and then they're used to rolling off the volume of that. Now, also keep in mind that if you are on the clean channel and you are using one of the drives and you roll off the volume knob, this also affects the gain of the drive pedal. So here is the clean, here is the clean sound. Here's the clean sound with a little bit of overdrive on it. And again, if I roll off the volume pedal, you can see that it cleans up the distortion pedal or the overdrive pedal that's in front of a clean amp. Again, some people do like this behavior. Some people are very used to it. So you can leave the volume block here in this position if that's the behavior you want. Now, if you want the behavior of the volume pedal before the amp, but after your drives. So for example, if I turn on this overdrive again, you can see that the volume block is here after the overdrives. If I roll off the volume knob now, or the volume pedal rather, it's going to still maintain the same level of gain, but we're also reducing some of the gain going into the amp. So you can see there's a lot of different options here for that kind of behavior. Some people are used to putting in volume pedal after all their overdrives, but before an amp. So that is also an option. And last but not least, if you want the option of the volume pedal not affecting the gain of the amp in any way, whether you're using overdrives or not, I would recommend putting the volume pedal after the amp block, but before all your time-based effects, so you can get some swells. You do a lot of cool little ambient things. And then the other thing, of course, is you get the advantage of it not affecting the gain of the amp. So here's the volume pedal, our volume block after the amp, and you can see that if I roll off the volume pedal all the way, or maybe about a quarter of the way here, the amp still maintains its amount of gain. So there's no, reduction on the gain of the amp. And again, you get a lot of optionality and functionality because you can still roll off the volume knob. So here's my volume knob at about 5. Again, on a dirty amp. And then I can, of course, roll back the volume pedal. And again, that is some functionality that some users might want. So this preset, again, is designed to be used for a lot of different varieties of situations. So again, just this part of the volume pedal, volume block, saying, I'm going to leave this and save it in front of the amp this is usually the most common. But again, you can always drag this to here so it doesn't affect the gain of your overdrives, or you can drag it to here and it doesn't affect the gain of anything, and you could just save it in this position. So moving on from the volume pedal, we got your basic wah right here. And again, this wah is going to be tied to pedal 1. So if you're using an expression pedal, make sure you put the expression pedal in pedal 1, PDL1, and it's right below the headphone jack on the FM9. A lot of people inadvertently start plugging the expression pedal into the headphone jack. Make sure you use PDL1. And again, this wah is going to be auto engaged, so I'm just using medium position. I find that works for a lot of different users. And then this PC reset right here, just make sure that every time you load this preset, regardless of where the expression pedal is, the wah will be in the off position. So because we're using an auto engage feature, you don't need to use a toe switch. You can use any expression pedal, whether it's the Fractal ones. I do like the Akai and Roland expression pedals because they're plastic, they're cheap, they're very light, and then they already have a cable, TRS cable already attached to it. Makes, setting up for gigs really easy as well as traveling. But again, you can use any expression pedal you want. And because we're using the auto engage feature, the wah will turn on and off. So if I move pedal 1, you can see the wah engages. And then when I move the expression pedal into the heel back toe up position, the expression pedal, the wah turns off. And again, I made some settings here that are very similar to some of my other presets because I do play a lot of cover gigs, a lot of weddings and everything like that. And I don't want the wah to distort the clean amp too much if I'm doing some kind of funky rhythm guitar thing. So really great for that kind of stuff if you're playing in, kind of cover band or doing some funk guitar kind of thing. Okay, so at this point, I think it's probably, a good time to at least talk about the amp block. And I know I'm skipping these drives for a second. And the amp block, I'm using the Deluxe reverb for the clean side, and then the Friedman BE version 2 for the, rhythm channel side or the distortion side. And I chose these amps because, again, I have some other presets that are just dealing with the Deluxe reverb by itself. So this is just going to be kind of an evolution from that. And then the other thing is I do find that the Friedman, for most new users, is really, really simple to dial in. As you can see, most of these knobs are somewhere close to noon, and I've had many, many clients that are starting out on Fractal products that struggle with getting a good guitar tone because, the real version of a lot of the guitar amps in the Fractal reflect the way the real amp in the real world would be. So for example, some amps, you do need to have kind of wild and wacky settings to get, the maximum best tone. For example, a lot of the Mesa Boogie Mark series, a lot of the way you dial in those amps, it can be really counterintuitive where you're cranking the treble in the mids and then you're dumping the bass to almost zero to get your great, Mark series tones. And then you're using the output EQ to kind of, change the EQ on that. I find that the Friedmans are really good for newer users starting out because a lot of guitar players are just a little shy to, start turning knobs too far away from noon. And as you can see, most of these knobs are set at noon. The Friedman by itself, when you use the default settings, the master volume is a little bit low. But because it's a 100-watt amp, I do recommend turning up the master volume so you can get those virtual power tubes cooking. And it sounds really good. There's a really great amp, versatile for all you rock players out there. And again, I just kind of did a middle of a road kind of rock guitar thing. You can of course reduce or crank the gain if you need to for the dirty side. So here's the clean side. And again, this is using the Deluxe reverb. The clean channel as of this firmware hasn't been modeled in the Fractal, only the dirty channel. So this is a pretty good approximation of the clean channel in the Friedman BE 100. And again, the Deluxe reverb, I think, is a really great clean platform. And as you can see, the gain is set pretty low because this corresponds to the volume knob of the Fender Deluxe reverb. And a lot of people go, well, why don't you just put this at noon? And that would be the equivalent of putting the volume knob on a Fender Deluxe reverb at 5 or 6. So that would be, first off, really, really loud for that amp. And since it's a 22-watt amp, it would already start distorting. So again, I recommend keeping the gain pretty low on this to maintain a clean sound. And so here's the neck pickup. And you can see I can dig in and just pay attention to this headroom parameter right here. You can see that if you dig in really hard, the amp starts to get close to that, edge of breakup thing. But if I go to the bridge pickup, for example, it's starting to just get right in that, edge of breakup thing. And you can dig in a little bit. And of course, you can augment some of that overdrive with these two drive blocks that we'll address in just a few seconds. So that's kind of my philosophy of the amp block switching between channel A and channel B. And I'll go over this later on in the video, but you will have a foot switch so that you can switch between channels A and channel B. So as you can see right now, we are in the A channel right here, and that bracket is showing that you are on the clean channel. And then if we, of course, switch to the Friedman, the dirty channel, you can see that this bracket will be around the B channel. And of course, the light, the LED on the actual foot controller of the FM9 will also change so you can see whether you're on the clean or dirty channel. So let's go back to the clean channel. And again, this preset is designed to be something that you can just, take to a gig tonight. Maybe you play in a cover band, you play some rock songs, maybe you play some funk songs. Maybe you play some, just kind of middle of the road pop songs. And again, you have a lot of versatility in this because between the clean and the dirty channel, and here's the dirty channel, that covers a pretty wide spectrum. And of course, you can always roll off your volume knob. As you can see, the amp cleans up really well. And of course, you can start getting some other tonal variety by adding drives to either the clean or the dirty channel. So in this case, for most of my experience, we always need kind of like a kind of in-between sound, something between clean and full-on rock distortion. So this first drive block is going to correspond to the clean boost section of the pedal board and this preset. And just like my other gig-ready presets, I give a lot of options for channels. So if this channel A doesn't work for you, you can always switch to channel B and then save it so that it always loads channel B instead. So let's go through some of these tones. So this is the kind of clean boost, kind of in between distorted and clean. The first channel, I'm using the Clone Chiron, aka the Klon. So that's my neck pickup. This is kind of good for, maybe you're doing some kind of stone stuff, maybe some bluesy stuff. Here's the bridge pickup. And again, responds really great to the volume knob. Okay. And then, so now in channel B, it's all going to be similar in flavor, just different versions of this. Is the Esoteric RCB, aka the Exotic Effects RC Booster. As you can see, it's a little bit darker, has a little bit less of that kind of top end. And again, you can always adjust the gain if you need more gain than that or less. And again, in these performance pages, which I will show later on in this video, you can adjust this on the fly in the middle of a gig. So you have a lot of options there. So the next one is the tape distortion. Again, another, different flavor of the same idea. You can, of course, always, adjust the gain or the drive if this isn't quite the in-between that you need. And then the last one is the FET preamp. And as you can see, I'm going strictly into the clean channel on all this. You can, of course, switch to the dirty channel and start turning on any of these boosts. I'll just go through that quickly. So you have a lot of options to maybe just boost the front end of that amp a little bit. Maybe it's a lead sound that you're going for. Maybe you just need a little bit of that push over the top, make it go to 11, as they say. So you have a lot of different options here. Let's go to the last channel. Here's the FET preamp. So again, I'll leave it in channel A for all you users out there. And you can see that we can just get, even more of a high gain sound with both the drive and the amp on channel B, the Friedman right there. And you can see that when you add an overdrive in front of a dirty amp, it just tightens up that low end a little bit. So if you do play something where you need, some tight riffage, plenty of options there. Now, with this drive block, I definitely didn't want to have too much gain because we have an overdrive block here. So for all the kind of overdriven sound, you can think of the clean sound of this preset as being stage 1. If you add this, it's stage 2. This would be stage 3. And of course, you can switch to the B channel of the Friedman to go into stage 4 and 5. So a lot of different tonal options. And of course, just like real overdrive pedals, you can stack these as well. So you can turn on both of them. And again, you'll be able to do that on the fly with all these, the pedals here that I programmed in this preset. So let's go over each of these sounds in the overdrive block. This is going to be just kind of your standard tube screamer sound. And again, responds really great to your tone knob and your volume knob. So here's the neck pickup. And same thing with the bridge pickup. You can roll it off a little bit. Okay, so now in channel B, we have the BB Pre-AT, which is the Andy Wood BB preamp. Again, just a different flavor of overdrive. I also really like this one. Most people are used to tube screamers, so I leave that in channel A. But if this is more of your flavor, feel free to just leave it on this channel, and then you can bypass the block and hit save there. And every time you load the overdrive, it will be the Andy Timmons BB preamp, if that's kind of the flavor that you like. Again, all these pedals respond to the volume knob really well. So this is the Jam Ray. So this is the Vemurim Jam Ray. This is kind of more of like an overdriven kind of Fender sound. And again, it works great for rhythm guitar as well. Okay, and last but not least, we have the Esoteric ACB. This is the Exotic Effects AC booster. Just another flavor of kind of a different overdrive, a little darker, a little warmer. So if any of these overdrives you prefer over this tube screamer, just leave it in the channel, bypass it, and save it. And again, the great thing is, even in the dirty channel, these overdrives can help you get, a nice, great lead tone. So for example, here is the Friedman with the tube screamer, very classic, kind of great combo. And again, if there's too much of that shrill top end, you can always roll off your tone knob or roll off the volume knob a little bit. And of course, all these other overdrives can do the same thing. And of course, last but not least, the AC booster. And I'll leave it in this. And of course, if you are on the clean channel, you can, of course, stack these overdrives. So again, a lot of different tonal flavors to use in this particular preset. Feel free to copy the settings. I'll leave it again on the clean channel right there. So next up, we have all these blocks that are after the amp block. And again, this is the time-based effects section. If you've been watching this YouTube channel, you can see some of the other approaches that I've done. So we got your basic tremolo here. And again, you'll notice down here with this 1/8 that is tied to an eighth note that you can use the tap tempo function. So the tap tempo is going to be included in this preset. And again, you can tap the tempo of how the tremolo, warbles. Okay, so pretty common kind of sound, very useful. And again, if you need it to be, more aggressive, you can turn up this depth, as well as trying some of the other different types. Next up, we have the chorus. And again, I was just kind of going for a real kind of basic chorus. So this is the Japan CE2. It's kind of the boss chorus. Okay. Next up, we have a delay. I'm using the graphite copy delay. This is based off of the MXR carbon copy. And again, I'm just using this as kind of a pretty generic standard delay sound that doesn't just get in the way too much. And again, if you need a little bit more of that delay, you can just turn up this mix, or if you need less repeats, turn down the feedback. You'll notice that compared to the regular EQ of this at default settings, I've definitely pulled back a lot of the high cut on this, because when you are on a dirty sound, it can definitely be a little bit more aggressive. But I wanted to give a useful kind of lead sound. So let's say hypothetically you're stacking an overdrive in front of the amp, and then you also want the delay on. I didn't want the delay repeats kind of getting in the way of the main sound. It just adds a little bit of sustain on that dirty sound. So just keep that in mind when you're using the delay. Feel free to use your own if you prefer a different tone. This reverb right here is just kind of your just basic, always on kind of reverb. I'm using the studio reverb. I believe that's based off of Lexicon reverb. You can hear it just adds a little bit of depth to the guitar tone. If I turn it off, pretty dry. Again, I'm not too much of like a let's use a ton of reverb kind of person, because this next reverb right here is going to be for if you need a washy kind of ambient reverb. But in this case, just as an always-on reverb, I think it works great. So next up, we have this Nimbostratus reverb. This is based off of one of the cloud reverbs from the Strymons. And again, this just gives you a big, nice, wide, washy ambient reverb. And again, my goal for this preset is to give a wide variety of players, a lot of different options. I'm thinking of if you're the type of player who's playing in a cover band that, covers a lot of different styles, maybe you play in a church or something like that, you can just take this preset. It's going to work for a lot of different situations. In the future, if there is enough demand for it, maybe I'll make some, very specific presets, maybe, for different types of players who are playing a very specific type of gig, but this is just to cover everybody's bases. So again, you can, turn on a lot of your time-based effects and have a really cool kind of ambient sound. And of course, you have your volume pedal to do a lot of swells. So I find that really useful if you're doing, some washy stuff. Next up, you'll see this filter block. And this filter block is just a volume boost. And again, it's after the amp. So of course, this can turn up the amp up or down as needed. And again, right here, it's a 4 dB boost. I find somewhere between 2 and 4 is plenty for depending on the situation that you're going to do. And again, the filter boost, you'll see it says volume boost on the actual pedal board, is just to take whatever tone you have and just turn it up about 4 dB louder. I find for most people somewhere between 2 and 4 is fine. And again, if it's too loud or not loud enough, just adjust the level right here so that every time you turn on the filter block, it's going to boost the volume by, a certain amount. So here is the sound without the filter. And again, there's no EQ, no nothing. It just takes whatever tone you have and makes it louder. So again, if you are on the Friedman and then you have like your lead tone or something and you just want to make it louder, you can just turn on the filter block and then that's going to be like for the lead. And then back to rhythm. So a lot of different options there. You can always use it to, make certain parts in a song poke out if you're playing live. And again, you can just turn this on and, maybe use an overdrive or something. And then that can be kind of like a, mid-gain kind of lead sound. So a lot of different options there with this filter block. So let's talk about this cabinet block and all these outputs as we get to the end of this particular preset. You'll see here that the cabinet block is at the very end of the preset, and then we are tied to outputs 1 and outputs 2. And if you've watched some of my tutorial videos on the reasoning of why we do this, is so that with the FM9, you have a lot of different options. Again, I can't predict that every user who uses this preset is going to have the same type of, amplification, but this gives a lot of options. So for example, output 1 is controlled by the output 1 knob on the FM9, as well as the this also determines the output 1 also determines what is going to be fed into the headphone jack. So if you are practicing at home and you're using headphones, it's going to do whatever tonal thing that you want, and it's going to go through a cab simulation, and it's going to go out of output 1. And again, it's also simultaneously going out of output 2. So you have a lot of different options. Output 1, for example, could go to front of house on a gig. Output 2 could go to a full range cabinet or speaker, or maybe it goes to an in-ear rig, or maybe it runs direct. You can, of course, go output 1 to your full range speaker in case you're also using your headphones to feed an in-ear rig. And again, because you have output 1 and output 2 here, those two knobs are completely independent of each other. So a really common scenario is, for example, I'll always use output 1 for my stage sound. I'll go into a Fender FR12 or an RCF NX12 SMA. That's my full range speaker on stage. Output 2 is going to go to front of house. So at sound check, the sound engineer just gets, whatever the sound they need from me, and then I just leave that knob alone the whole gig. And then output 1, if I need more me on stage, I can just crouch down and turn output 1 up or down on the FM9 without affecting what's going to front of house. Really useful. I never have to turn around. And again, if you're using a full range cabinet that maybe it's a little difficult to get to the volume knob, especially if it's like a wedge kind of situation, that can be really, really useful. And the other thing is, because output 1's also going to the headphone jack, I use an Ernie Ball headphone jack combo cable a lot on gigs. So sometimes, I'm using in-ears and everything like that. And again, you'll see it shunt off here before the cabinet block, because output 3, if you are using a power amp, so for example, Fryette LX3, or you're using one of the Seymour Duncan power amps, you're not feeding any cabinet simulation out of output 3. And again, to note that if you are going into the effects return of an amp using one of the Seymour Duncan power stages, or you're using a Matrix GT 1000 effects to power a real cabinet, a standard guitar cabinet on stage, just make sure that output 3 is fully clockwise. And again, in the setup, it's also set to unity gain. So going into setup, going into audio, and just make sure that output 3 is right here. You can either set it to stereo or copy left, right, depending on what it is, but you want output 3 to just not be boosted or anything like that. So it needs to be either these settings or copy left to right for mono. Okay, so let's go back to this cab block. Now in here, I'm using just the Friedman GB with the Dynacabs. So Friedman GB is, the greenback speaker on a Friedman cabinet. And I use these kind of settings. Again, just going by ear, something that I think is going to, cut through live without being too harsh. It's just going to sit in the mix really great. If you've watched some of my other videos, you can definitely, you may know my philosophy is that a lot of the tonal shaping is going to be done in the cabinet block. So if you need a more low end, especially for this particular preset, go to this level right here and just turn that up or down. The ribbon's providing a lot of low end. But the Friedman Dirty Amp does have a lot of low end in it. So I find that it might be a little bit boomy if you add too much. But again, some users really like that. It does, I will admit, it does feel great to just kind of do a heavy palm mute with a lot of low end behind you. But sometimes it can muddy up the mix, or it might be just too boomy depending on your, what kind of amplification you're using. Okay, so that's going to be it for the particular preset. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to transition over into, an overhead shot of the FM9 and what the preset looks like when you load the preset so that you can kind of get the most functionality, see where the button layouts are and everything like that. So you'll have some performance pages so you can actually edit any of the sounds on the fly, everything like that. Just straight on the FM9, you don't need to bring a laptop to the gig or anything. You can do this mid-song, in between songs. You can do this at soundcheck. I think it's really useful to use these performance pages. And in these FC Edit, the cool thing is I'm using these per preset overrides, so it doesn't overwrite any of your layouts. This preset is going to be fully independent versus everything else. So for example, if you have some of your other favorite presets, and it has a very specific layout on it, this doesn't conflict with any of that, and you don't need to load in extra files or do any of that kind of stuff. You can just download this preset and then just load it into your unit, and that's it. You don't need to do anything different. So before I switch to the overhead shot, I just want to make one last thing, is that this firmware this preset has been made on firmware 8.01. So for example, if you are on an earlier firmware, I can't stress this enough, if you're on firmware 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, whatever, this preset will not load correctly until you at least are at 8.01. As of this recording, there are newer firmwares, but again, I just wanted a preset that can, for some people who might not have upgraded their firmware recently, this preset will still work, and then you can just use that for your unit. So at this point, I'm going to switch to an overhead shot and kind of walk through how to edit this preset on the fly, make some tonal adjustments if you need, as well as some of the other things that you need to be ready for. All right, everybody. So now we're using an overhead shot of the unit. As you can see, I have my output knobs basically around noon. It's going to be different for every user. That's a good starting point. And then you can, of course, adjust how your amplification works. If you're using a headphone jack, maybe you might want to turn the output 1 down a little bit, depending on how loud your headphones are. Let's talk about all the buttons. So you can see down here in the bottom left, you can see which channel the amp is on. So for example, when you're on channel A, that's going to be the clean sound. And then when you're on channel B, that's going to be the dirty sound. And you can hear that it's completely gapless. Okay, so again, very useful. That bottom left-hand corner switch is going to be for channel switching. Then you can see down here, it's going to be the clean boost right here. Turning on that clean boost, that's going to be drive 1 in the preset. And then the overdrive right here is going to be drive 2 in the preset. You have your chorus, you have your delay, and then you have the volume boost right here. Down in the bottom right, you have the tremolo up here. And then the tap tempo is there for the time-based effects, but if you actually hold down the tap tempo, then the tuner turns on. And then, of course, you press it again to turn it off. And of course, you have the big reverb right up there in the, I guess that would be the 7th switch. Okay, so let's talk about how to actually edit this preset on the fly in case you're at a sound check, you're at a gig, maybe you need the clean sound to be louder, or maybe you need the distortion sound to come up. You can do a lot of quick editing on the fly using a performance page. So whenever you boot up the FM9, it's always going to load up in this particular screen right here. And you can see that there's no scenes in here. This is just going to be strictly, 2 channels on an amp and a bunch of different effects. But if you want to switch to the performance pages, all you need to do is go up to this tab right here, and it says Performance PP. So you can get to that by hitting page right. And now you'll see that you have access to all the amp knobs. And then in the second row, you have access to the gains and levels of the overdrives and the clean boost. So for example, I'm using the nav buttons to go up and down between these 2 rows. And the cool thing is that in the middle of a sound check, in the middle of a gig, you can just leave it on this screen. Preset functions as normal. And you don't need to do anything other than just leave it on the screen. And then these 5 knobs here are now going to correspond to adjusting any of the settings. In this case, the top row is the amp. So you can see it says amp 1 bass, amp 1 mid, amp 1 treble, the drive, or the gain for the amp. And again, if I switch to the dirty channel, you'll see that the knobs change and correspond to where the knobs are set for the dirty channel. So if you need to switch and adjust anything in the clean sound, make sure it is on channel A down here, and then you can turn any of these knobs, the A, B, C, and D knobs, and then they're going to function exactly like a real amp. So you could turn the A knob to adjust if you need more bass, you can turn that up, or you can turn that down. And again, you can do the same thing with amp channel B. And then, for example, if this particular sound has too much gain, you can just go to the drive right there, which is knob D, and then you can rotate that clockwise or counterclockwise to adjust the amount of gain or drive. Now, you can do the same thing with the overdrive. So the first 2 knobs, the A and the B knob right here, are going to control the gain and the level of the clean boost. And then C, D, and E are going to control the gain, the level, and the tone of the overdrive. So again, you can leave the preset in whatever screen you want, in whatever row you want, in the middle of a gig, in the middle of a sound check, make adjustments. And once you've gotten your adjustments exactly where you want it, all you need to do is hit Store, Enter, Enter. And it's going to save it. So really simple, really effective way to make adjustments on the fly. Works just like a real amp and everything like that. And you have a lot of different effects. So again, thank you so much for, going through this video with me. If you do purchase this preset, I just want to thank you in advance. I really appreciate it. If you need any help getting any of your Fractal products dialed in, or if you need any help getting any of your modelers dialed in, by all means, feel free to reach out to me directly, and then we can set up a session where I can do this all remotely. So other than that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks.
I'm falling with you, I'm standing with you, got it all in